The desert wind carried more than dust that autumn evening in 1858. It brought the scent of sage and something else, blood and desperation. Evelyn Carter stood at her window, watching the sun bleed crimson across the New Mexico sky, her weathered hands wrapped around a cup of cold coffee. The small wooden house creaked in the wind, a lonely sound that matched the hollow ache in her chest. 2 years since cholera took James, leaving her with an infant son who followed his father just 3 months later, claimed by fever. The townspeople said she was cursed. Perhaps they were right. What kind of god took a baby from a woman who'd already lost everything? The knock came soft, almost lost in the wind. Evelyn frowned. Nobody visited anymore, not since she'd stopped attending church, stopped pretending she believed in divine mercy. She set down her cup and moved to the door, her hand instinctively reaching for the rifle propped against the wall. "Who's there?" she called through the wood. No answer, just another knock, weaker this time. Evelyn lifted the wooden bar and cracked the door open. The sight that greeted her made her breath catch. A man in Apache warrior by his dress swayed on her porch, his buckskin shirt dark with blood. But it wasn't the warrior that made her heart stutter. It was the bundle in his arms, a baby, no more than 6 months old, its weak cries barely audible above the wind. "Milk!" the warrior said, the English word thick on his tongue. His dark eyes burned with desperate intensity. "Baby! Milk!" Every instinct screamed at her to slam the door. Apache raids had terrorized settlements throughout the territory. Just last month, the Miller Ranch had been burned, though the Apache claimed it was retaliation for an unprovoked attack on their camp. She should fetch her rifle, alert the sheriff. The baby cried again, a pitiful sound that cut through her defenses like a blade. Evelyn's body responded before her mind could object, her breasts aching with phantom pain, the body's cruel memory of what it meant to be a mother. "Sweet Mary," she whispered, then stepped aside. "Come in, quickly." The warrior stumbled through her door, and Evelyn caught him before he could fall. He was younger than she'd first thought, perhaps 25 summers, with high cheekbones and intelligent eyes that watched her every move. Blood seeped from a wound in his side, but he held the baby as if it were made of precious glass. "Sit," she commanded, guiding him to her kitchen chair. The baby's cries grew weaker. "How long since the child ate?" 2 days, he managed. "Mother dead, sister dead." His voice cracked on the last word. "Soldiers." Evelyn didn't need to hear more. The pattern was always the same violence, begetting violence in an endless cycle. She took the baby from his reluctant arms, her heart clenching at how light the child felt. A boy, she realized, with a shock of black hair and skin flushed with fever. "I'll need to—" She stopped, heat rising to her cheeks. How did one explain to a stranger, an Apache warrior, no less that she still had milk, 2 years after losing her son? Her body's stubborn refusal to accept what her heart knew, that she would never nurse her own child again. The warrior seemed to understand. He nodded once, then turned his gaze to the window, giving her what privacy he could. Evelyn carried the baby to her bedroom and closed the door. Her hands trembled as she unbuttoned her dress. Doctor. Morrison had said it would stop eventually. This body's insistence on preparing for a child who would never come. She'd bound herself every day, ignored the ache, pretended her body wasn't betraying her with its readiness for motherhood. The baby latched immediately, desperately, and Evelyn gasped at the sharp pull. Tears streamed down her face, grief, relief, and something else she couldn't name. The child's tiny fist clutched at her shift as he drank, and for a moment, in the dim light of her bedroom, she could almost pretend. No, this wasn't her child. This was an Apache baby whose mother lay dead somewhere in the desert. When he was strong enough, the warrior would take him and disappear, and she would be alone again. That was how it had to be. When the baby finally slept, belly full and breathing steady, Evelyn returned to the kitchen. The warrior sat exactly where she'd left him, though sweat now beaded his forehead and his breathing came shallow. "The child," he asked. "Sleeping." She moved to her medicine shelf, gathering clean cloths and her precious bottle of whiskey. "You're bleeding." "Not important." "It is if you die and leave me with a baby I can't explain to anyone." The harsh words surprised them both. Evelyn softened her tone. "Let me help." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. With careful movements, he removed his shirt, revealing a deep gash along his ribs. Not a bullet wound, a blade, probably from a cavalry saber. Evelyn worked in silence, cleaning and binding the wound with practiced efficiency. She'd done this before. For James, when he'd tangled with barbed wire. For neighbors after accidents. The warrior endured her ministrations without sound, though she saw his jaw clench when she poured whiskey over the gash. "There," she said finally. "It'll need checking, but if fever doesn't set in—" "You are alone," he observed, glancing around the spare kitchen. "No, man. My husband died 2 years ago." "Children." Evelyn's hand stilled.
"A son. He went to be with his father."
The warrior's expression shifted, understanding dawning in his eyes. "The boy, he is my sister's son, last of her children. The others—" He made a cutting gesture across his throat. "What's your name?" Evelyn asked quietly. "Dakota." He pronounced it carefully, as if testing whether she was worthy of the knowledge. "It means friend to everyone."
"I'm Evelyn."
She folded the bloodied cloths, needing something to do with her hands. "How did you know to come here?" "I watched. Saw you alone. Saw you kind to Mexican children at well." His English was better than he'd first let on. She realized. "Thought maybe you help."
"And if I hadn't—"
Dakota shrugged, then winced at the movement. "Then the child and I join his mother." The simple fatalism in his voice chilled her. Evelyn looked toward her bedroom where the baby slept. "He'll need feeding every few hours. You can't travel for days, not with that wound." "Cannot stay. Dangerous for you." She knew he was right. If anyone discovered she was harboring an Apache warrior, but the alternative was sending an injured man and a starving baby back into the desert to die.
"There's a root cellar,"
she heard herself say. "Under the kitchen. You could hide there if anyone comes. Just for a day or two, until you're stronger." Dakota studied her face.
Why
Indeed, Evelyn thought of her son's grave on the hill, of the endless empty days stretching before her, of the moment the baby had latched onto her breast and made her feel, for just an instant, whole again. "Because," she said simply, "I know what it is to lose everything." As if in response, the baby cried from the bedroom. Evelyn rose to tend him, aware of Dakota's dark eyes following her movement. At the doorway, she paused. "What will you call him, the child?" Dakota was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Shush, in your language. Little Fox, because he must be clever to survive." "Little Fox." Evelyn tested the name silently as she lifted the baby from her bed. He'd soiled himself, and she cleaned him with practiced movements, found some old cloths to fashion a diaper. He was beautiful. This child with perfect tiny fingers and long lashes against copper cheeks. When he nursed again, she hummed an old lullaby her mother had sung, the same one she'd hummed to her James Jr. in his brief months of life. Through the thin walls, she heard Dakota moving carefully in her kitchen, the scrape of the rug as he found the cellar door. Smart. He was preparing for the inevitable someone would come asking questions. Mrs. Wellington from the general store had probably already noticed the direction he'd headed. By morning, half the town would know something was amiss at the widow Carter's place. But tonight, for these few hours, she had purpose again. A child needed her. It didn't matter that he wasn't hers, that tomorrow or the next day she'd have to give him up. Right now, little Fox's warm weight in her arms was enough. When she returned to the kitchen, Dakota had indeed found the cellar. He'd also stacked wood by her stove and filled her water bucket from the pump, small gestures that spoke of ingrained courtesy despite his injury. "You should rest," she said. He shook his head.
I keep watch. You sleep with child.
"You can barely stand." "I am warrior." Pride flickered in his voice. "I protect what is mine."
What is mine?
The phrase lodged in Evelyn's chest like a thorn. Little Fox wasn't hers. This fragile, temporary arrangement wasn't hers. Tomorrow would bring reality crashing back. But Dakota was already settling himself by the window. Rifle across his lap, where had he gotten her rifle? His posture alert despite the pain she knew he felt. Evelyn recognized the futility of argument. Apache warriors, she'd heard, were stubborn as mountain stone. She carried Little Fox back to her bedroom. Settling into the rocking chair James had made when they'd first learned she was expecting, the baby fussed briefly, then settled against her chest. One tiny hand splayed over her heart. Through the window, she could see the first stars emerging in the desert sky. Somewhere out there, soldiers camped around their fires, telling stories of savage Indians. Somewhere, Apache mothers mourned children lost to cavalry rifles. And here, in this small house on the edge of nowhere, a white widow nursed an Apache baby while his warrior uncle kept watch against the night. Evelyn closed her eyes and rocked, humming softly. Tomorrow would bring whatever it brought. Tonight, she wasn't alone. The candle burned low as the hours passed. Little Fox woke twice more to nurse, and each time Evelyn checked on Dakota, he remained at his post, though she noticed the stiff way he held himself, the occasional tremor in his hands. Infection was always a risk with deep wounds. She'd seen men die from less, their bodies burning with fever until there was nothing left but ash and memory. "You need medicine," she said during one of these checks.
Real medicine. There's a doctor in town.
"No doctor." His voice was flat. "No town. Then you'll die. And what happens to Little Fox then?" Dakota turned from the window, his dark eyes catching the candlelight.
You would take him.
The question hung between them like a challenge. Would she? Could she raise an Apache child as her own? Facing the scorn of the town, the whispers, the danger, could she love another woman's baby, knowing every day what she'd lost? Evelyn faltered, then steadied. "I would try." Something shifted in Dakota's expression, surprise, perhaps, or respect. "You are a strange woman, Evelyn Carter." "So I've been told." He almost smiled then, though pain quickly erased it. "In my people, woman who feeds child becomes mother. Not blood mother, but milk mother, sacred bond." Evelyn felt heat rise to her cheeks. Among her own people, wet nursing was common enough, but rarely discussed in polite company. "It's just until you're well enough to travel." "Yes," Dakota agreed, but something in his tone suggested he heard the lie as clearly as she did. Dawn came too soon, bringing with it the sound Evelyn had dreaded, hoofbeats approaching from the direction of town. Multiple riders, moving with purpose. "Cellar," she hissed, but Dakota was already moving, gathering his few possessions with practiced efficiency. He paused at the cellar door, eyes finding hers. "If they take child..." "They won't." The fierceness in her own voice surprised her. "Go!" The cellar door had barely closed when the knock came loud, authoritative, the knock of men who expected to be obeyed. "Mrs. Carter," Sheriff Watson's voice, carefully polite but edged with suspicion. "Need to speak with you, ma'am." Evelyn took a breath, checked that her dress was properly buttoned, then opened the door. 3 men stood on her porch. Sheriff Watson, his deputy Jake Morrison, and Samuel Hayes from the telegraph office, all armed, all wearing expressions of grim determination.
"Sheriff,"
she greeted calmly.
rather early for a social call.
"Pardon the hour, ma'am, but we've had reports of an Apache in town last evening. Man was injured, carrying something. Trail led this direction."
Apaches.
Evelyn let a note of alarm enter her voice.
Here.
"Now, no need for panic," the sheriff assured her. "We're checking all the outlying houses. You haven't seen anything unusual." From the bedroom came a sound that made everyone freeze a baby's cry. The men exchanged glances. Deputy Morrison's hand moved to his pistol. "Mrs. Carter," the sheriff said slowly.
Whose child is that?
The baby's cry pierced the morning air again, more insistent this time. Evelyn's heart hammered against her ribs, but she forced her expression to remain neutral. "My cousin's child," she said smoothly. "From Santa Fe. She died in childbirth. And the father, well, he wasn't the marrying kind. I've taken the baby in." Sheriff Watson's weathered face showed skepticism. "Mighty sudden. Mrs. Carter, nobody mentioned you were expecting family."
It was unexpected.
Evelyn lifted her chin.
Sarah, my cousin, we weren't close, but when her neighbor wrote about the baby needing a home,
she let her voice catch, a calculated display of emotion. "How could I refuse after losing my own?" The manipulation worked. The men shifted uncomfortably, suddenly finding the porch boards fascinating. Everyone knew about Evelyn's losses. It was Watson's own wife who'd helped prepare little James Jr. for burial.
"Could we see the child?"
Deputy Morrison asked, though he looked ashamed of the question.
"He's barely 2 weeks old,"
Evelyn protested.
"And colicky. I just got him settled."
As if to prove her wrong, Little Fox let out another wail. Evelyn sighed theatrically. "Very well, but please keep your voices down." She led them inside, acutely aware of the cellar door just feet away. In the bedroom, she lifted Little Fox from his makeshift cradle, a drawer she'd padded with blankets. The baby fussed at being disturbed, his face scrunching in displeasure. The men peered at him awkwardly in the morning light. Little Fox could pass for Mexican or even Italian. His skin was lighter than Dakota's, his features still possessing that universal quality of newborns. "A healthy-looking boy," Watson admitted. "What's his name?"
"James,"
Evelyn said without hesitation.
"After his grandfather."
"And the father?" "A traveling merchant, from what Sarah's letter said, long gone by the time she realized." Evelyn adjusted the baby's blanket, hiding the distinctly Apache beadwork on the carrying cloth Dakota had wrapped him in. "Sheriff, surely you don't think I'm harboring fugitives with a newborn infant?" Watson had the grace to look embarrassed. "No, ma'am, it's just... Sam here saw an Apache heading this direction last evening. We have to check everything."
"Of course."
Evelyn moved toward the kitchen, forcing them to follow, away from the cellar. "Can I offer you gentlemen some coffee you must have ridden out before breakfast?" "That's kind, but we should." Watson stopped, noticing the medical supplies still on her table, the bloodied cloths she hadn't had time to dispose of. His hand moved to his gun. "Mrs. Carter."
"What's this?"
Evelyn's mind raced. "I had to doctor my horse yesterday. Poor creature got tangled in wire near the creek. Tore herself up something awful." She gestured toward the window. "You can see her in the corral. She's favoring her right foreleg." Morrison peered out the window. Buttercup, Evelyn's aging mare, stood placidly in the morning sun. By pure chance, she was indeed standing with one hoof slightly raised, her habitual pose when resting. "Looks like a deep wound," Watson observed, fingering the bloody cloth. I was blessed to have James's medical supplies still on hand. Truth mixed with lies always more believable than pure fabrication. The sheriff seemed to accept this, but Samuel Hayes, who'd remained silent until now, spoke up. "Mrs. Wellington said she saw an Indian near your property. Tall fellow, carrying something." "Mrs. Wellington sees Indians every time a shadow moves," Evelyn replied tartly.
Last month she swore she saw a whole war party in her garden. Turned out to be the Hernandez boys looking for their lost goat. Morrison chuckled at that, and even Watson's stern expression cracked slightly. Mrs. Wellington's paranoia was well known. Still, Watson said, we need to check your property. The barn, any outbuildings. Of course. Evelyn shifted Little Fox to her other arm. He'd begun to root against her shoulder, seeking milk. Though I'll need to feed the baby first. As you can see, the men couldn't exit fast enough at the implication of nursing. We'll check the grounds, Watson muttered. You tend to the, maternal duties. As soon as they were outside, Evelyn flew to the cellar door. Stay quiet, she whispered urgently into the darkness. Whatever you hear. No response, but she knew Dakota was listening. Evelyn retreated to her bedroom, genuinely needing to nurse Little Fox. Through the window, she watched the men search her small barn. The chicken coop, even the privy, they were thorough. She'd give them that. Little Fox latched eagerly, and Evelyn allowed herself a moment to study him properly in daylight. His hair wasn't purely black as she'd first thought, but shot through with hints of brown. His eyes, when they fluttered open briefly, were the deep brown of winter earth. Beautiful child. Some woman had loved him, had died trying to protect him. I won't let them take you, she whispered. I promise. The search took an hour. Evelyn heard them talking outside, Watson's voice carrying on the still morning air. Trail goes cold at the creek. Could have gone any direction from there. Maybe he didn't come this way after all, Morrison suggested. Maybe Wellington was seeing things again. Maybe, but Watson sounded unconvinced. Finally, they knocked again. Evelyn answered with Little Fox sleeping peacefully in her arms. The picture of maternal serenity. Find anything? She asked innocently. No, ma'am. Watson touched his hat. Sorry to disturb your morning, but Mrs. Carter, if you do see anything suspicious, I'll ride to town immediately, she assured him. No need for that. Just fire your rifle 3 times. We'll have men posted around the area for the next few days. Evelyn's stomach sank, but she kept her expression neutral. Of course, though I hope you catch him quickly. I'd hate to think of a dangerous Indian lurking about with a baby in the house. We'll get him, Hayes spoke up, his young face hard with determination. Apache killed my brother last year. Won't rest till every last one is dead or driven from the territory. The venom in his voice made Evelyn clutch Little Fox tighter. Watson noticed and placed a restraining hand on Hayes's shoulder. That's enough. Sam, Mrs. Carter's been through enough loss without us adding to her worries. He tipped his hat again. Ma'am. Evelyn watched them ride away, waiting until the dust settled before rushing to the cellar. Dakota emerged slowly, painfully, his face gray with strain. They're posting guards, she said. You can't leave. Must leave. Bring danger to you. You can barely stand. Evelyn steadied him as he swayed. And there's nowhere to go. They'll shoot you on sight. Dakota's jaw clenched. She could see the warrior's pride warring with practical reality. How long? A few days. Watson said maybe a week. She helped him to a chair. Your wound needs cleaning again, and you need food. Not hungry. I don't care. Evelyn bustled about the kitchen, needing activity to calm her nerves. You'll eat what I make, or you'll be too weak to protect Little Fox when the time comes. That argument worked, while she prepared a simple meal of beans and cornbread. Dakota held his nephew, speaking to him in soft Apache. The musical flow of words was strangely soothing, even though Evelyn understood none of it. What are you telling him? She asked, setting a plate before him. His mother's name, his grandmother's name, the names of our mountains. Dakota touched the baby's cheek gently. So he knows who he is, even if he grows up among whites. Dakota's dark eyes met hers, Especially then.
They ate in companionable silence, broken only by Little Fox's occasional squeaks and sighs. Evelyn found herself studying Dakota when he wasn't looking, without the haze of emergency. She could see him more clearly. He was younger than she'd first thought, perhaps only a year or two older than herself. His face bore the weathering of desert life, but also a keen intelligence that showed in how quickly he absorbed everything around him. "Your English is very good," she observed. "Mission school, when I was boy." His expression darkened. "Before I learned the price of their teaching." Evelyn wanted to ask more, but sensed the memory was painful. Instead, she rose to clear the dishes. "You should rest. The cellar's too damp for that wound. You can use my husband's, the spare room." "No, cellar safer." "Then at least let me make it more comfortable. There are blankets, and I can bring down—" A horse whinnied outside. Both froze.
"Cellar, now!"
Evelyn hissed. But it was too late. The door burst open without ceremony, and Mary Wellington swept in, her pinched face alight with righteous curiosity. "Evelyn Carter, I simply had to—" She stopped mid-sentence, her gaze landing on Dakota. Her mouth opened, but no sound emerged. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then Mary's face transformed from shock to triumph to calculation so quickly it was almost comical. "Well," she breathed. Well, Mary," Evelyn began, but the older woman held up a hand. "Don't you marry me. Young woman, an Apache, in your kitchen, bold as brass." Her eyes glittered with malicious delight. "Oh, what will the sheriff say?" Dakota tensed, ready to fight or flee despite his injury. But Evelyn stepped forward, placing herself between them. "What do you want, Mary?" The older woman's smile was sharp as broken glass. "Want why? I want nothing, dear, just concerned for your safety. All alone out here with a savage?" "He's not a savage." The words came out harder than intended. "He's injured and has a baby to care for. I'm offering Christian charity. Nothing more." "Christian charity?" Mary laughed, a harsh sound. "Is that what you call it? And whose baby is that?" "Exactly. Not the cousin from Santa Fe, I'd wager." Evelyn's mind raced. Mary Wellington was the biggest gossip in 3 counties, but she was also greedy, grasping, always looking for an advantage. "What do you want?" she repeated. Mary's eyes narrowed. "That's better. Straight talk, I like that." She moved further into the room, examining everything like a buyer at an auction. "You know, I've had my eye on this property for some time. Such good water access. Perfect for my nephew when he arrives from Ohio. This is my home. For now." Mary's smile widened. "But a woman who harbors Apache fugitives. Why? She might find herself run out of town. Or worse, unless she were to sell to the right buyer at the right price." Mary named a figure less than half what the property was worth. Rage rose in Evelyn's throat, hot and bitter. This vulture, circling her grief, her loneliness, trying to profit from— Little Fox cried from the bedroom. The sound cut through her anger like cold water. This wasn't about her pride or her property. A child's life hung in the balance. And Dakota's— "I need time to think," she said. "Of course, dear. Think all you like." Mary moved toward the door, then paused. "Until sunset. After that, I'm afraid my civic duty will compel me to inform the sheriff." She looked directly at Dakota. "They hang Apache raiders. You know, even injured ones. Even ones with babies." She swept out as dramatically as she'd entered, leaving silence in her wake. "I go," Dakota said immediately. "Now, take Little Fox and—" "You won't make it a mile." Evelyn sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted.
They're watching the roads, and you're in no condition. I not let you lose home for us. It's just a house. The words surprised her. Just wood and nails and... She looked around the kitchen where she'd learned to cook at her mother's knee, where James had proposed, where she'd sat up all night with her dying baby. No, it's more than that. Dakota watched her struggle, something soft in his expression. You could come with us. What? To my people, you and Little Fox, you are Milk Mother now, would be welcomed. For a wild moment, Evelyn actually considered it. Leave everything behind, the whispers, the pity, the empty rooms full of ghosts. Start fresh where no one knew her as the cursed widow, the barren woman whose body insisted on preparing for babies who would never come. But reality crashed back. She was a white woman. The Apache were at war with her people. It would mean choosing sides in a conflict that had no good answers. I can't, she whispered. Then we go, better than you lose. We're not going anywhere. Steel entered her voice. And I'm not losing anything. Mary Wellington thinks she has me cornered, but she's forgotten something. What? Evelyn smiled grimly. She's forgotten that I've already lost everything that mattered. You can't threaten someone who's got nothing left to lose. She rose, moving with new purpose. Can you write in English? Dakota nodded slowly. Good. I need you to write exactly what I tell you. She fetched paper and pencil. We're going to give Mrs. Wellington exactly what she deserves. As Dakota wrote to her dictation, Evelyn felt something she hadn't experienced in 2 years' hope. Not for herself, perhaps, but for the child sleeping in her bedroom, for the wounded warrior who trusted her enough to place his nephew's life in her hands. The sun climbed higher, casting sharp shadows across the desert. Somewhere out there, soldiers hunted for an Apache who sat at her kitchen table, carefully forming English letters. In town, Mary Wellington counted chickens before they hatched. And in the bedroom, Little Fox slept peacefully, unaware that his future hung by the slenderest of threads being woven by a grieving widow who'd found, in the strangest of circumstances, a reason to fight again. The afternoon sun slanted through the kitchen window, illuminating the letter Dakota had just finished writing. His careful script, learned at the mission school years ago, spelled out Evelyn's salvation or her doom. Read it back to me, she said, checking the bandage on his wound. The bleeding had stopped, but red streaks were beginning to spider outward from the gash, infection setting in. Dakota read in his measured English, I, Mary Wellington, do confess to stealing water from the Carter property for the past 2 years, diverting the creek flow to irrigate my husband's land. I also confess to poisoning Evelyn Carter's chickens last spring when she refused to sell them to me below market price. Good. Evelyn added another line. Furthermore, I have been selling goods at the general store without proper licenses, keeping 2 sets of books to avoid territorial taxes. Dakota raised an eyebrow. This is true. Every word. Her husband told mine before he died. Tried to get James to join their scheme. Evelyn's smile was sharp. She seems to have forgotten that conversation. From the bedroom came Little Fox's hungry cry. The sound had become as familiar as her own heartbeat in just 1 day. Evelyn started to rise, but Dakota stood first. I get him. You rest. She watched him move carefully toward the bedroom, favoring his injured side. The sight of the Apache warrior handling his nephew with such gentleness stirred something in her chest she didn't care to examine. While Dakota tended the baby, Evelyn busied herself grinding willow bark. Her grandmother had taught her the remedy good for fever and pain, though not as strong as the laudanum the doctor prescribed. She'd need to sneak into town for proper medical supplies if Dakota's wound worsened. Evelyn? His voice from the doorway made her turn. He stood holding Little Fox, but his expression was troubled. The baby! He burns! Her heart lurched. She crossed quickly, placing her hand on Little Fox's forehead. Hot. Too hot.
The fever that had killed her own son had started just like this. "No," she whispered, then louder, firmly. "No, we're not losing him." She took the baby, her mind already cataloging what she'd need. Cool water, clean cloths, the tonic she'd saved from James Jr. Illness, the one that hadn't worked then but might work now because she'd be faster, smarter, better. "Heat water," she ordered Dakota. "Not too hot, and bring all the clean cloths from the linen chest." They worked in synchronized silence, two people who'd known loss bending all their will toward preventing another. Evelyn bathed Little Fox carefully, cooling his small body while not shocking his system. Dakota sang softly in Apache prayers. She thought, though she didn't ask. "When my son took fever," she said, needing to fill the silence, "the doctor said it was God's will, that some babies were just too pure for this world." Her hands never stopped their gentle ministrations. "I wanted to strike him." "Did you?" "No, I was a proper widow. I nodded and thanked him and paid his fee." She wrung out another cloth. "I should have struck him." Dakota's hand covered hers briefly. "Anger keeps us alive sometimes." Little Fox whimpered, turning his head restlessly. His tiny body fought the illness with everything it had, but it seemed so small a fight against so large an enemy. "Tell me about his mother." Evelyn said, "What was her name?" "Ayana. It means eternal bloom." Dakota's voice roughened. "She was 17 winters, married to my cousin, but he died in the raids last autumn. She tried to run when the soldiers came, tried to protect." He stopped, but Evelyn could fill in the rest. A young mother, recently widowed, fleeing with her baby, cut down by men who saw enemies, not people. "She would be grateful," Evelyn said softly, "that you saved him, that you brought him here." To a white woman. "To someone who would feed him." She lifted Little Fox to her breast, coaxing him to nurse despite his fever. "That's all that matters now." The baby latched weakly, and Evelyn held her breath until she felt him swallow. Once, twice, each pull a tiny victory against death. A horse approaching made them both tense, but the rider passed without stopping, heading toward town, probably one of Watson's patrols. "The sun sets soon," Dakota observed. "The Wellington woman?" "Let her come." Evelyn's voice was steel. "I have her confession written in your hand. Even she's not stupid enough to call attention to her crimes." "You think she backs down?" "I think she's a coward who preys on the weak." Evelyn adjusted Little Fox's position. "She thought I was weak. She was wrong." As if summoned by her name, hoofbeats again approached the house. This time, they stopped. But it wasn't Mary Wellington who knocked. It was a hesitant, almost timid tap. Evelyn passed Little Fox to Dakota and answered warily. A young Mexican woman stood on her porch, carrying a basket. "Senora Carter," she said softly. "I am Rosa Hernandez, from the town." Evelyn recognized her vaguely, one of the laundresses who took in washing from the boarding houses. "Yes. I hear... that is... mi madre, she says..." Rosa glanced nervously over her shoulder. "She says you have baby now. New baby." "My cousin's child," Evelyn said carefully. "Si, of course." Rosa's knowing look said she believed not a word. "Mi madre. She sends this for the baby." She held out the basket. Inside were cloth diapers, soft from many washings, a knitted blanket, a small wooden rattle, and wrapped in brown paper, herbs Evelyn recognized: feverfew, elderflower, mint. "For the sickness," Rosa whispered. "Mi madre, she knows these things, says to brew like tea, cool it, give drops every hour." Evelyn's throat tightened. "Why would your mother—" "3 years ago, when my Pablo was born too early, you came, brought food, sat with me through the night." Rosa's eyes glistened. "We remember kindness. Senora,
We remember who sees us as people. She pressed the basket into Evelyn's hands and hurried away before thanks could be offered. Evelyn stood holding the gifts, overwhelmed by unexpected grace. Good people exist, Dakota said from behind her. He'd witnessed the exchange, even in war. Yes, Evelyn closed the door, cradling the basket. They do. She brewed the herbs as directed, the kitchen filling with medicinal scents. Little Fox's fever had stabilized but not broken. They took turns holding him, walking him, singing to him. Dakota taught her Apache lullabies. She taught him English hymns, though she no longer believed the words. As darkness fell, no Mary Wellington appeared. Either she'd thought better of her threats or she was planning something worse. Evelyn found she didn't care. All that mattered was the baby's labored breathing, the endless cycle of cooling cloths and herbal drops. You should sleep, Dakota said near midnight. I watch him. I can't. She'd tried lying down earlier, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw James Jr., his still face. I need to be doing something. Then do something else. Mend, cook, but rest your spirit. Sound advice she couldn't follow. Instead, she found herself talking about James, about the farm they'd planned to build, about the 3 children they'd wanted. Words poured out like water from a broken dam. Dakota listened without judgment, occasionally sharing his own losses. His father, killed when he was 12, his brother, lost to smallpox, the girl he'd hoped to marry, taken in a raid while he was hunting. Loss shapes us, he said during a lull, but does not define us. Doesn't it? Evelyn touched Little Fox's cheek, still too warm. I feel like I've become nothing but loss. The widow, the childless mother, the woman who saves Apache baby? Dakota finished. Who risks everything for stranger's child? That defines you too. Before she could respond, Little Fox stirred. His eyes opened clearer than they'd been all day. He looked directly at Evelyn and made a soft sound, almost like recognition. Hello, little one, she whispered. He turned toward her voice, his tiny hand reaching out. She gave him her finger to grasp, and he held on with surprising strength. Then, miracle of miracles, his lips curved in what might have been a smile. He knows you, Dakota said wonderingly. Already he knows his milk mother. The fever broke an hour later. Little Fox's skin cooled. His breathing eased. He nursed properly for the first time since morning, then fell into peaceful sleep. Evelyn wept then great, gulping sobs that shook her whole body. Dakota said nothing, just sat beside her as she cried out 2 years of grief and fear and loneliness. When the storm passed, she felt empty but clean, like a house after spring cleaning. Thank you, she said simply. For what? For trusting me with him, for letting me be a mother again, even for a little while. Dakota was quiet for a long moment. Then, among my people, fostering is sacred. Children belong to the tribe, not just parents. You say, even for a little while. But, he paused, choosing words carefully. What if not little while? What do you mean? I cannot return to my band. Not soon. They move deep into mountains for winter. Places soldiers cannot follow. But I am hunted man now. My presence brings danger. He looked at Little Fox sleeping peacefully. He needs stability, safety, mother who can feed him. You're not suggesting... I suggest nothing. Only say what is. Dakota's dark eyes met hers. You need child. He needs mother. Sometimes Creator makes strange families. Evelyn couldn't speak past the hope lodged in her throat, to keep Little Fox, even temporarily. But reality crashed back. The town would never accept it, an Apache child. Tell them Mexican or Italian. Babies look like babies. Dakota shrugged. By time he older, maybe world different. Maybe not, but he alive to see. A sound outside made them both freeze, not horses this time, but footsteps, multiple sets, trying to be quiet.
Cellar,
Evelyn hissed, but Dakota shook his head. Too late. They surround house. He reached for the rifle. You take baby. Go to bedroom. Lock door. I'm not leaving you to... Glass shattered in the front window. A torch sailed through, landing on Evelyn's rag rug. Flames spread instantly.
Fire,
Someone shouted outside.
come out, Indian, or we'll burn you out.
More torches followed. In seconds, smoke filled the room. Little Fox woke, crying. Dakota pushed Evelyn toward the bedroom.
Go, I hold them off.
No, she grabbed his arm.
The root cellar has an outside entrance. Behind the wood pile. We can...
Another window broke. More fire. The house, James's house. Their dream house was going to burn. But houses could be rebuilt. People couldn't... Together, she said firmly. We go together or not at all. Dakota looked at her for one eternal second, then nodded. They moved as one toward the cellar stairs. Evelyn clutching Little Fox. Dakota guarding their backs despite his injury. The cellar was dark, musty, already filling with smoke from above. But Evelyn knew every inch. She led them to the outside door, praying it would open, praying the mob hadn't thought to guard it. The door stuck, swollen with disuse. Dakota put his shoulder to it, grunting with pain. Once, twice. On the third try, it burst open. Cool night air, blessed and clean, but also shouts, running feet, chaos. The burning house cast wild shadows across the yard. There, by the wood pile, a shot rang out, then another. Dakota pushed Evelyn behind the wood stack, shielding her and Little Fox with his body.
Stop,
A new voice, commanding and official. Everybody stop shooting right now. Sheriff Watson on horseback, rifle raised skyward. Behind him, a small cavalry unit, real soldiers, not vigilantes.
What in the devil's name is going on here?
Watson roared. The mob, Evelyn recognized several faces, including Samuel Hayes, shifted uneasily.
Apache,
Someone muttered, hiding Apache and stolen baby.
so you burned down a widow's house?
Watson's disgust was clear.
Get water on that fire now, move.
The spell broken. Some men rushed to form a bucket brigade. Too late for the house, but the barn might be saved. Watson dismounted, approaching Evelyn's hiding spot carefully. Mrs. Carter, you hurt. She emerged slowly, Little Fox wailing in her arms.
No, but Dakota, he needs a doctor.
Dakota Watson's eyes found the Apache warrior, who stood ready to fight despite swaying on his feet. That his name...
Yes, and he's not a raider. He's a refugee. His sister was killed. He brought me her baby to save.
That's so. Watson studied them, the Apache warrior, the white widow, the crying infant. Something in his weathered face softened. Well then, seems like we need to sort this out proper. Captain... The cavalry officer rode forward. Young, Evelyn noted. Barely older than Dakota. Captain Morrison, Watson said. I believe we need to escort these folks somewhere safe while we investigate certain crimes. Arson, for starters. Sir, the captain looked confused. Use your eyes, boy. Does that look like a war party to you, man can barely stand? And Mrs. Carter here's as fine a woman as ever lived in this territory. Watson's voice brooked no argument. You'll escort them to Fort Stanton. They'll be safe there while we sort this mess. But, sir, regulations state. I know what regulations state. I also know what decency demands. Watson turned to the mob, many of whom were trying to slink away. As for you lot, anybody not helping with that fire better clear out. I'll be pressing charges come morning. It happened so fast Evelyn could barely process it. One moment they were trapped, the next they were being helped onto a wagon. Dakota resisted until she touched his arm. Trust him, she said softly. Sometimes there are good people. As the wagon rolled away from her burning home, Evelyn looked back once. Flames consumed the place where she'd been a wife, a mother, a widow, the place where she'd grieved and healed and grieved again. But in her arms, little Fox had quieted. Beside her, Dakota breathed steadily despite his pain. Ahead lay uncertainty, but also possibility. The fire took her past. Perhaps that was a gift. "What will you do now?" Captain Morrison asked, riding alongside the wagon. Evelyn looked at the stars wheeling overhead, the same stars that had watched over Apache and settler alike for countless generations. "Live," she said simply. "We'll live." Fort Stanton rose from the desert like a mirage of civilization, its adobe walls glowing pale in the morning sun. The journey had taken all night, with stops to rest the horses and tend to Dakota's wound. Little Fox had slept through most of it, lulled by the wagon's rhythm and the safety of Evelyn's arms. "Strange sight, isn't it?" Captain Morrison rode alongside them. "Apache warrior seeking sanctuary in an army fort." "These are strange times," Evelyn replied, adjusting the blanket around Dakota. He'd fallen into a fevered sleep an hour ago, his body finally succumbing to infection and exhaustion. The fort's gates opened at Morrison's signal. Soldiers stared openly as their wagon rolled through a white woman, an Apache warrior, and a baby made for a curiosity that would fuel gossip for weeks. "The infirmary first," Morrison directed the driver. "Then we'll see about quarters." Dr. Benjamin Klein, the fort's physician, was a thin man with kind eyes behind wire spectacles. He took one look at Dakota and began barking orders to his assistants. "How long has he had this wound?" 3 days, Evelyn answered. "I cleaned it, but the infection—" "You did well to keep him alive this long." Doctor Klein examined the wound with gentle efficiency. "Sepsis setting in, but we've caught it in time. I'll need to lance and drain it. Pack it with carbolic acid. He'll be here at least a week." "I'm staying with him," Evelyn said firmly. The doctor glanced at little Fox in her arms. "And the child?" "Is my responsibility." Something in her tone brooked no argument. "Doctor," Klein nodded. "There's a chair in the corner. You can wait there." The surgery took 2 hours. Evelyn nursed little Fox, sang to him, walked him around the small room when he fussed. Through it all, she watched the doctor work on Dakota with steady hands and surprising care. She'd expected roughness, dismissal, the casual cruelty often shown to Apache prisoners. Instead, she saw a healer treating a patient. When it was done, Dakota lay pale but breathing steadily, the angry red streaks already fading from around his wound. "He's strong," Dr. Klein said, washing his hands. "With rest and proper care, he should recover fully." "Thank you," Evelyn said, meaning it deeply. "Don't thank me yet. There's still the matter of what happens next." The doctor's expression grew serious. "Captain Morrison's bought you time by bringing you here, but there are protocols, questions that need answering." As if summoned, Morrison appeared in the doorway with an older officer, gray-bearded, stern-faced, with the bearing of long-time command. "Major Randolph," Morrison introduced, "Post Commander." The major studied them all, the sleeping Apache, the white woman, the baby. "Mrs. Carter, I presume Morrison's told me quite a tale. I'd like to hear your version." So Evelyn told it, simply and honestly. The wounded man at her door, the starving baby, her decision to help, the mob's attack. She left nothing out except the forged confession from Mary Wellington, that card she'd keep in reserve. "You realize," Major Randolph said when she finished, "that harboring an Apache could be considered treason, that child could be a captive, stolen from settlers." "He's not," Evelyn said firmly. "His mother was Dakota's sister. She died protecting him from soldiers who attacked their camp." "So the Apache claims." "So I believe." They stared at each other, wills clashing silently. Then Little Fox stirred, making a soft cooing sound. The Major's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "My own grandson's about that age," he said quietly. Then, louder, "You'll be assigned quarters in the civilian section. The Apache remains under guard while he recovers. After that," he shrugged, "we'll see what Washington says." It was better than Evelyn had dared hope. She was given a small adobe house near the fort's eastern wall, 2 rooms, basic but clean. A private's wife, Mrs. O'Brien, helped her settle in. "Been a while since we had excitement like this," the Irish woman said, helping arrange the few supplies they'd been given. "An Apache baby. Imagine though he's a pretty thing, isn't he?" "All babies are pretty," Evelyn said carefully. "Aye, that they are." Mrs. O'Brien winked. "Don't worry. Love, secret's safe with me. Had my own struggles when I married Patrick Protestant and Catholic. You know, not the same as your situation, but I understand something about choosing love over convention." "It's not like that," Evelyn protested. "Dakota and I aren't—" "Of course not." Mrs. O'Brien's knowing smile said otherwise. "I'll bring some proper baby clothes tomorrow. My youngest has outgrown them." Over the following days, a routine emerged. Evelyn spent mornings at the infirmary, helping care for Dakota while Little Fox played on a blanket nearby. Afternoons she worked in the fort's laundry payment for their keep, though several officers' wives offered to pay her directly for the service. Dakota recovered slowly but steadily. On the 4th day, he woke fully alert for the first time since the surgery. Little Fox were his first words. "Thriving," Evelyn assured him, bringing the baby close. "See, he's gained weight already." Dakota touched his nephew's cheek with one finger, whispering something in Apache. Then he looked at Evelyn. "You stayed." "Where else would I go?" "Your people, another town, somewhere without Apache trouble." "Those aren't my people, not anymore." She adjusted his blanket unnecessarily. "Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't tear those stitches." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Bossy woman." "Stubborn man." They fell into comfortable silence, broken only by Little Fox's babbling. The baby was beginning to show personality, quick to smile, eager to explore, protesting loudly when his needs weren't immediately met. "He's like his mother," Dakota said, watching the baby grab for Evelyn's hair, always reaching for something just beyond grasp. "Tell me more about her, about your family." So he did, painting pictures with words of a life Evelyn had never imagined. The seasonal migrations following game and water, the intricate kinship systems where children belong to everyone, the ceremonies marking life's passages, the careful balance with the land that soldiers and settlers had shattered. "We weren't always warriors," he said. "My grandfather remembered when first white men came, traders. We were curious, friendly, taught them desert ways. Then more came, and more, until there was no room left for us to be ourselves." "I'm sorry," Evelyn said, knowing how inadequate the words were. "You did not take our land. You gave my nephew life." He caught her hand. "Do not apologize for what you did not do." That evening, Major Randolph summoned her to his office. Sheriff Watson was there, dust covered from hard riding. "Thought you'd want to know," Watson said without preamble. "Arrested Sam Hayes and 4 others for arson. Mary Wellington's fled the territory. Seems someone informed her about certain financial irregularities coming to light." He winked at Evelyn. "The house?" she asked. "Total loss, I'm afraid, but your land's still there. And interestingly enough, Mrs. Wellington left a signed document transferring her property to you. Payment for unspecified debts." Watson produced a paper, all legal and witnessed. Evelyn stared at the document. Mary's land adjoined hers together. They'd make a substantial holding. "How?" "Let's just say a certain letter in Apache handwriting found its way to the right people." Amazing how fast guilty folks run when their sins come calling.
Major Randolph cleared his throat. This changes things. Mrs. Carter, you're now a woman of property. You could rebuild, start over. The territory needs stable settlers.
What about Dakota?
The two men exchanged glances.
Well now, Watson said slowly. Seems to me a woman with substantial holdings might need help managing them. Ranch hand, maybe someone who knows the land.
The Apache, Randolph frowned.
That's highly irregular.
So's everything about this situation, Watson countered.
But I've been thinking, maybe it's time we tried something different. This war's not ending through killing. Maybe some peaceful coexistence might show a better way.
Washington would never approve.
Washington's not here.
We are.
Watson turned to Evelyn. What do you think? Could you make a go of it, ranch life, with...
He gestured vaguely. Evelyn thought of Dakota teaching her desert survival, of Little Fox growing up knowing both worlds, of the loneliness that had nearly killed her before they arrived.
Yes, she said simply.
I could...
The negotiations took another week. Papers were drawn up, carefully worded. Dakota would be listed as a ranch employee, sponsored by Evelyn. He'd report monthly to the fort. Any violation would result in imprisonment. It wasn't freedom, but it was better than the alternatives. When Evelyn told him, Dakota was silent for so long she feared he'd refuse.
Why? He finally asked.
Why take this risk?
Because Little Fox needs you.
Because I need...
She stopped, started again. Because it's right.
Your people will not accept this.
Then I'll find new people. She lifted her chin. I'm tired of living by others' rules about who I can help, who I can care for. They already whisper about the cursed widow. Let them whisper about this too.
You are sure?
Instead of answering, Evelyn placed Little Fox in his arms. The baby immediately grabbed for his uncle's hair, gurgling happily. Dakota's face softened in a way that made her heart skip.
Among my people, he said quietly, when a woman saves a man's life, he owes her a debt that can never be fully repaid.
You owe me nothing.
No.
He looked up at her, dark eyes intense. I owe you everything.
The day of departure came crisp and clear. Captain Morrison provided a wagon and supplies unofficial help from sympathetic quarters. Doctor. Klein checked Dakota one last time, pronouncing him fit to travel. Take care of that wound, he warned. And Mrs. Carter, that baby's lucky to have you.
Mrs. O'Brien pressed a basket into Evelyn's hands. Baby clothes, like I promised, and some seeds from my garden. You'll want vegetables come spring.
Even Major Randolph came to see them off. I'm probably making a mistake, he said gruffly. But Morrison believes in this, and I trust his judgment. Don't make me regret it. As they rolled through the fort's gates, Evelyn looked back once. This place had been sanctuary when they needed it most. Now the open road called, leading to land that was hers and a future uncertain but full of possibility.
Scared?
Dakota asked from his place in the wagon bed. He was still too weak to ride, but insisted he could see better from there.
Terrified,
Evelyn admitted, then smiled.
But also alive, for the first time in years. Truly alive.
Little Fox chose that moment to laugh a real laugh.
Bright and perfect. The sound carried across the desert, a promise of joy in a harsh land.
Good sign, Dakota said. Apache believe baby's first laugh brings luck to all who hear it. Then we'll need to make him laugh often.
Yes, Dakota's hand found hers. We will.
The wagon rolled on, carrying them toward whatever came next. Behind them, the fort faded into distance. Ahead, the land waited challenging, unforgiving, but theirs to attempt. 3 unlikely souls bound by circumstance and choice, heading home. Not the home any of them had planned, but perhaps the one they were meant to find. The sun climbed higher, warming the desert. Little Fox slept peacefully between them, and for the first time since she'd lost everything, Evelyn Carter looked forward to tomorrow. The charred remains of Evelyn's house looked even more desolate in the morning light. She stood among the ashes, Little Fox on her hip, while Dakota sorted through the rubble for anything salvageable. 3 weeks had passed since the fire, 3 weeks of preparation and paperwork, and now they faced the reality of starting over. "Here!" Dakota emerged from what had been the kitchen, holding her mother's cast-iron skillet, blackened but intact. Fire cannot destroy everything. It was the 5th useful item he'd found the skillet, a metal box containing her few precious photographs. James's tools somehow protected in their shed, her grandmother's silver brush, and, miraculously, the small wooden cross from above their bed. Not much to build a life on, but more than many had. "We'll need shelter first," Evelyn said practically, though her throat tightened seeing the ruins. "Before we can think about a proper house." Dakota nodded, scanning the horizon. There where land rises, wind protection, water access. We build Wiki up first, traditional Apache dwelling. Strong, warm, quick to make. She'd learned not to question his judgment about survival matters. While she'd grieved her losses at Fort Stanton, he'd been planning. Now she watched him pace off distances, testing soil, tasting water from the creek that ran through both properties. "Good place," he finally declared. "We start here." They worked through the heat of the day, Dakota teaching her to bend saplings into frames while Little Fox napped in a makeshift cradleboard. His movements were still careful, the wound wasn't fully healed, but he pushed through discomfort with quiet determination. "Like this," he showed her, weaving smaller branches between the main supports. "Must be tight. Rain runs off, wind stays out." Evelyn's hands fumbled at first, city soft despite 2 years of frontier life. But gradually she found the rhythm, understanding how each piece supported the whole. When Dakota began covering the frame with brush and grass, she worked alongside him without needing instruction. "You learn quick," he observed. "I have a good teacher." By evening, they had a serviceable shelter, nothing fancy, but weatherproof and surprisingly spacious inside. Dakota had oriented the entrance eastward, explaining it would catch morning sun and avoid prevailing winds. "Tomorrow we get canvas from Fort," he said, surveying their work. "Cover outside, make stronger. But tonight, this enough." They ate a simple meal of beans and cornbread cooked over an open fire. Little Fox, now 8 months old, grabbed eagerly at the soft bread Evelyn offered him, smearing it across his face with obvious delight. "Messy eater, like his mother," Dakota said fondly. "She once covered herself in berry juice, looked like war paint." Grandmother laughed, said she was born to be trouble. These glimpses of his past came more frequently now, small windows into a life before loss. Evelyn treasured each one, building a picture of the family Little Fox came from. "What was your grandmother like?" "Strong, wise, scared of nothing except owls." He smiled at the memory. "Said they carried messages from the dead. Would cover her head if one called at night." "My grandmother feared moths," Evelyn shared. "Said they were souls trying to return. Used to seal every window at dusk." They sat in comfortable companionship as stars emerged. The wickiup sheltered them from the cooling wind, its interior warm from body heat and the small fire Dakota had built in the center. Smoke escaped through a hole at the top, carrying sparks up to join the stars. "This is temporary?" Evelyn asked, gesturing at their shelter. "Could be permanent. Wickiups last many seasons if maintained, but..." He glanced at her. "You want house like before, wood walls, glass windows." "I thought I did." She adjusted Little Fox, who was drowsing against her chest. "But this feels right, somehow. Like we're not trying to impose something on the land, but working with it. Apache way." Dakota agreed. "Take what land gives, leave what it needs." Over the following days,
They established routines. Mornings were for heavy work. Dakota teaching her to set snares, find edible plants, read weather signs. Afternoons, while Little Fox napped. They improved their camp, building a better fire pit, creating storage areas, establishing a kitchen garden with Mrs. O'Brien's seeds. The work was hard, harder than anything Evelyn had done before. Her hands blistered, her back ached, her skin browned under the desert sun. But each night she fell asleep with the deep satisfaction of meaningful accomplishment. "You're different," Dakota observed one evening as she expertly cleaned the rabbits he'd snared. "How so?" "When we met, you moved like you were already ghost. Now you move like living woman." She considered this, hands never pausing in their task. "I was a ghost, going through motions, waiting to join my family." She looked at Little Fox playing with pine cones nearby. "He brought me back." Only him. The question hung between them, charged with unspoken meaning. Evelyn felt heat rise to her cheeks, but didn't look away from Dakota's steady gaze. "No," she said softly, "not only him." That night, Dakota produced a surprise, a small wooden flute he'd been carving in spare moments. He played softly, melodies that seemed to rise from the earth itself. Little Fox watched with wide eyes, reaching for the instrument. "Music important for Apache children," Dakota explained, letting the baby touch the flute. "Teaches listening, patience, connection to world." "Play more," Evelyn requested. He obliged, and she found herself swaying slightly, feeling the music in her bones. When Little Fox finally slept, Dakota taught her a simple tune, 5 notes that seemed to contain all the loneliness and hope of the desert. "What does it mean?" "Morning song, gratitude for new day, new chances." He handed her the flute. "You try." Her first attempts produced squawks that made them both laugh. But gradually she found the notes, the breath control needed. When she finally played the sequence correctly, Dakota smiled, a full, genuine smile that transformed his usually serious face. "There, now you speak a little Apache." As the days passed, their temporary camp became more permanent. They acquired canvas from the fort, strengthening the wiki up, built a proper corral for the horses Captain Morrison had quietly arranged for them, established trade with traveling merchants who were surprisingly uncurious about Evelyn's unusual household arrangement. But they weren't completely isolated. One morning, riders appeared on the horizon, 5 men, moving with the purposeful pace of those on business. "Inside," Dakota said quietly, reaching for his rifle. "Take Little Fox." But Evelyn recognized the lead rider. "It's Sheriff Watson, and is that Father Miguel?" Indeed, the town priest rode alongside the sheriff, his black cassock incongruous in the desert setting. The other men she didn't know, but their bearing suggested official business. "Mrs. Carter," Watson greeted, dismounting carefully. "Dakota, fine-looking camp you've established." "Sheriff." Evelyn kept her voice neutral, though her heart raced. "What brings you out here?" "Several things. First, brought your mail from town." He produced a small bundle. "Second, Father Miguel has a proposition." The priest stepped forward, a small man with kind eyes and work-worn hands. "Senora Carter, I come with request. The mission school needs teacher, someone who can help Apache children learn English, understand white man's ways." Evelyn blinked in surprise. "You want me to teach Apache children?" "Who better you live with Apache? Understand both worlds." Father Miguel glanced meaningfully at Dakota. "Children trust those who show respect for their people." "It's paid position," Watson added. "Territorial government finally approved funding, part of new peace efforts." Dakota had remained silent, but Evelyn could read the tension in his shoulders. Mission schools had complicated history with his people. Some helped, many harmed. "I need to think about it," she said carefully. "Of course, but there's one more thing." Watson's expression grew serious.
Bernard Tucker's been sniffing around town, asking about you, making claims about the land, saying a woman alone can't hold it properly. Bernard Tucker, James's cousin, a man who'd felt entitled to the property since her husband's death. Evelyn's stomach clenched. "I'm not alone," she said firmly. "No, you're not." Watson's gaze included Dakota. "But Tucker's got lawyers, connections in the territorial capital. You'll need to be ready." After they left, Evelyn sat staring at the mail bundle. Letters from distant relatives, no doubt full of condemnation for her choices. Legal documents that might threaten everything they'd built. "You should take teaching job," Dakota said suddenly. "What?" "Good opportunity. Steady money, respect from community." He wasn't looking at her. "Safe future for you and little Fox." "What about you?" "I manage land. Stay out of sight. Better for everyone if—" "Stop." Evelyn stood, anger flashing through her. "Just stop. We're not having this conversation again." "Evelyn?" "No, I didn't save your life and nurse your nephew to have you disappear into shadows. We're partners in this, or we're nothing." They faced each other across the fire, wills clashing. Little Fox, sensing tension, began to fuss. "Partners," Dakota repeated slowly. "That what we are?" "Yes?" She lifted her chin. "Unless you have objections." His expression shifted through several emotions before settling on something that might have been wonder. No objections. That night, Evelyn finally opened the letters. Most were what she'd expected shocked relatives, former friends scandalized by reports of her living with an Apache. She fed them to the fire one by one. But the last letter was different. From a law firm in Santa Fe, it outlined Bernard Tucker's claim to the property and her need to appear before a judge to defend her ownership. "I know this judge," Dakota said, reading over her shoulder. "Samuel Bent, fair man. His wife is Mexican, understands mixed families." "You think we have a chance?" "With right approach, yes." He was quiet for a moment. "But might require adjustments." "What kind of adjustments?" Instead of answering directly, he stood and retrieved something from his pack, a small leather pouch, which he placed in her hands. Inside were 2 rings, one silver, one copper, twisted together in a pattern she recognized from his other metalwork. "Among my people, marriage is agreement between 2 who choose to walk same path," he said quietly. "No priests, no papers, just decision and declaration before witnesses." Evelyn's breath caught. "Dakota!" "Would help with a judge, legal protection, but more than that." He met her eyes. "I choose you. Evelyn Carter. Choose to walk your path. Raise little Fox as ours. Face whatever comes together. If you choose same." The night seemed to hold its breath in the wiki up. Little Fox slept peacefully. The fire crackled. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called. Evelyn thought of all the reasons to say no. The scandal, the danger, the impossibility of love between 2 people from such different worlds. Then she thought of these past weeks working side by side, learning each other's ways, building something new from ashes of the old. The way Dakota looked at her, not as the grieving widow, but as the woman she was becoming. The way her heart lifted when he smiled. "I choose the same," she whispered. His rare smile broke across his face like sunrise. With careful ceremony, he took the twisted ring and placed it on her finger. She did the same for him, the metals warm from his hand. "Now what?" she asked, suddenly shy. "Now we tell little Fox he has proper parents." Dakota's hand covered hers. "Tomorrow. We plan for judge. Tonight." He pulled her closer. "Tonight we just be—" They sat together watching the fire die to embers, planning a future neither could have imagined months ago. The wiki-up sheltered them, strong walls built by working together. Outside, the desert stretched endless and challenging. But inside, they had made a home.
The journey to Apache territory took 3 days through terrain that grew progressively wilder. They'd left at dawn. Evelyn riding the gentle mare Captain Morrison had provided while Dakota walked alongside. Little Fox secure in the cradleboard on his back. With each mile from the settlement, the landscape transformed scrub brush giving way to juniper, then pine as they climbed into the sacred mountains.
Are you certain they'll accept us?
Evelyn asked for the 3rd time as they paused to water the horses at a hidden spring. Not certain, Dakota admitted. But my grandmother's sister, Shima, leads the Winter Council. She is practical, sees farther than most. He'd sent word ahead through channels Evelyn didn't fully understand: smoke signals, marked trees, patterns of stones that meant nothing to her but spoke volumes to those who could read them. The response had come back: approach the winter camp at the new moon. Bring the child. Now, as afternoon shadows lengthened, Dakota stopped abruptly.
We're close. They watch us now.
Evelyn saw nothing but trees and rocks, but she'd learned to trust his instincts. Sure enough, 2 warriors materialized from the landscape like ghosts, young men with hard faces and harder eyes. They spoke rapidly in Apache, gesturing at Evelyn with clear hostility. Dakota responded calmly, but she caught the tension in his voice. One warrior spat at the ground near her horse's hooves. What are they saying? They say I bring curse to the people. That white woman's presence will draw soldiers. Dakota's jaw tightened. They're not wrong to fear. More Apache appeared, women and children emerging from hidden paths, all staring at the strange sight of their kinsman with a white woman. Evelyn kept her eyes forward, chin high, though her heart hammered against her ribs. The camp itself took her breath away. Nestled in a box canyon with natural fortifications, it blended so perfectly with the landscape she wouldn't have seen it if not led directly there. Wickiups dotted the canyon floor near a clear stream, smoke rising from cooking fires, children playing despite the newcomer's arrival. An elderly woman waited at the center of camp, her silver hair braided with feathers and beads. Power radiated from her small frame, not physical strength, but something deeper, older. Shima, Dakota said softly. My grandmother's sister. She who decides. He helped Evelyn dismount, then removed Little Fox from the cradleboard. The baby, usually cheerful, seemed to sense the moment's importance and remained quiet. Shima approached slowly, her dark eyes taking in everything: Evelyn's divided riding skirt, practical but well-made, the twisted metal ring on her finger, the way she held herself, frightened but not cowering, and finally, inevitably, Little Fox. She spoke, her voice carrying the authority of years. Dakota translated, She says you have her nephew's eyes. Ayana's child lives. Yes, grandmother. Dakota replied in English, then Apache. Shima circled them slowly, and Evelyn had the uncomfortable feeling of being evaluated like livestock. The old woman stopped in front of her, reaching out to touch the edge of her shawl, the calluses on her hands, the way she instinctively shifted to protect Little Fox. Then Shima spoke directly to her, in accented but clear English. You feed my great-nephew with your body. Heat flooded Evelyn's cheeks, but she met the elder's gaze. Yes, I lost my own child. When Dakota brought Little Fox to me, I still had milk. Him. Shima's expression revealed nothing. Why you not give child to Apache woman to raise? He's mine now. The words came out fiercer than intended. I mean, I love him as my own son. Love. Shima seemed to taste the word. White people speak much of love, but love means different things. She gestured to the camp around them. Here, love means survival, means choosing tribe over self. You understand this. I'm learning. Another thoughtful sound. Then, without warning, Shima plucked Little Fox from Evelyn's arms. Every instinct screamed at Evelyn to snatch him back, but Dakota's hand on her arm stopped her.
Wait, he murmured. Shima examined the baby thoroughly, his weight, his alertness, the strength of his grip when she offered her finger. Little fox, bless him, giggled and reached for her silver necklaces. Healthy, happy. She spoke to the gathered crowd in Apache, and Evelyn caught notes of approval in some faces. White mother feeds him well. She handed Little Fox back, and Evelyn clutched him close, heart still racing. Come, Shima commanded. We talk alone. The wickiup Shima led her to was larger than the others, hung with herbs and decorated with symbols Evelyn couldn't interpret. They sat on soft furs while Little Fox explored the fascinating new textures. Dakota says you are wife now, Shima began without preamble. Yes, in the Apache way, he said. You share his bed. Evelyn's whole face burned. We haven't. The baby needs so much attention. And, to her surprise, Shima chuckled. Good. Dakota always too serious, needs woman to make him flustered. Her expression grew serious again. But if you are a wife, truly wife, then you must understand what this means. I want to understand. Do you? Shima leaned forward. To be Apache wife is not like white marriage, is not just about one man, one woman, is about becoming part of people, share our struggles, our danger, our ways. I know the danger. Men already burned my home for helping Dakota. That was your danger, this different. Shima gestured outside where twilight gathered. Every day, we lose more. Land, people, children. Army pushes us to smaller places. Says we must farm like white men or starve. Young warriors want to fight. Old ones counsel patience. And in middle stands Dakota, trying to find new path. What path? He thinks whites and Apache can share land, can learn from each other. Many say he dreams foolish dreams. Shima studied her. What do you think? Evelyn considered carefully. I think the old ways are ending whether anyone wants them to or not. But maybe something new can grow. Not white ways or Apache ways, but both together. You would raise Little Fox this way, teaching him both worlds. Yes, so he can choose his own path when he's old enough. Shima was quiet for long moments, watching Little Fox play. Then, show me how you care for him. For the next hour, Evelyn demonstrated everything how she'd modified the cradle board for easier carrying. The songs she sang, both English lullabies and the Apache ones Dakota taught her, the way she read his different cries, the solid food she'd started introducing. Other women drifted in to watch, and gradually the atmosphere shifted from suspicion to curiosity. When Little Fox performed his newest trick, pulling himself to standing using Evelyn's skirts, several women exclaimed in approval. You have other children? One younger woman asked in broken English. I had a son. He died as a baby. The woman's face softened with understanding. She said something to the others. And suddenly Evelyn found herself surrounded by women sharing their own losses, children taken by disease, starvation, soldiers, grief, she realized, was a universal language. Night fell fully, and Dakota appeared at the wickiup entrance. Shima, the council gathers. Yes, bring your woman. The council consisted of 6 elders, 4 men, 2 women, all bearing the weight of leadership in their weathered faces. They sat in a circle around a small fire, smoke rising through the opening above. Dakota presented their case simply. He needed sanctuary for the winter months while establishing the ranch. Evelyn would return to white society as needed, but wanted to learn Apache ways to better raise Little Fox. They offered trade Evelyn's connections for supplies the band needed, Dakota's knowledge of white patterns and movements. The debate that followed was intense, though Evelyn understood only fragments. She heard her name, Little Fox's, caught references to soldiers and treaties and broken promises. One elder, scarred from old battles, spoke with particular vehemence against allowing any white presence in their hidden camp. Finally. Shima raised her hand for silence. She spoke at length, her voice carrying absolute authority. When she finished, she switched to English. The council agrees. You stay through winter moon. White woman learns our ways, proves herself friend to people. If she fails, both leave and never return. If she succeeds. Shima smiled slightly. Then we see what new path opens. Relief flooded through Evelyn. Thank you. I won't disappoint you. We shall see. Shima rose, signaling the council's end. Tonight you sleep in Dakota's family wiki-up. Tomorrow, real work begins. The wiki-up was smaller than their constructed shelter, but felt more permanent, lived in. Dakota's few possessions were neatly arranged weapons, tools, a beautiful woven blanket Evelyn recognized as his sister's work. That went better than I hoped, he said, settling Little Fox for sleep. The scarred elder wanted us gone immediately. Nantan, he lost 2 sons to soldiers, cannot forgive, struggles to see beyond pain. Dakota spread bedrolls, carefully maintaining distance between them. But Shima's word carries weight. She sees you try to bridge worlds. Am I trying to bridge worlds, or am I just a lonely woman clinging to a baby who isn't hers and a man who... She stopped, suddenly unsure how to continue. Who what? Dakota moved closer, his presence warm in the small space. Who probably married me out of obligation, for Little Fox's sake, for legal protection. Evelyn. He waited until she looked at him. I spoke words of choosing. Apache don't speak such words lightly. But you hardly know me. I know you saved us when safer to turn away. Know you face your fear each day, but don't let it rule you. Know you learn new ways without complaint. Work until your hands bleed, but smile when Little Fox laughs. His fingers brushed her cheek. Know you have good heart. What else matters? Tears pricked her eyes. James used to say I was too stubborn for my own good, too quick to act on feeling rather than thought. James was fool to not value such things. Don't speak ill of the dead. Then I speak truth of living. His hand cupped her face. You are stubborn, yes, also brave, kind, beautiful when you don't know I watch. Dakota. But tonight, just sleep. Tomorrow brings challenges enough. He was right. Dawn came too soon, bringing Shima's promised tests. Evelyn found herself grinding corn with the other women, her soft hands blistering against the stone. She learned to identify edible plants, to read weather and cloud formations, to maintain a fire without matches. Hardest were the subtle social rules. Where to sit, when to speak, how to show respect to elders. She made countless mistakes, reached for food before elders were served, walked between a speaker and the fire, laughed too loudly during a solemn moment. Each error brought sharp correction, sometimes mockery, but also, gradually, acceptance as she persisted without complaint. Little Fox, meanwhile, thrived, passed between various aunties and grandmothers. He absorbed Apache sounds and rhythms. Within days, he was babbling in cadences that sounded more Apache than English. He forgets me, Evelyn said one evening, watching him play happily with other children. No, Dakota assured her, but he learns he has many mothers now. Apache way children belong to all. And if something happens to me, then he still has family, always. He paused. This troubles you. It comforts me, she admitted. My greatest fear was leaving him alone. Now you understand what I offered when I asked you to come. Not just marriage, family, belonging. That night, for the first time, their bedrolls were placed side by side. Nothing more not yet, but the statement was clear. They were choosing each other, publicly, permanently. As Evelyn drifted toward sleep, Little Fox safe between them, she thought about boundaries. All her life she'd been taught to maintain them between races, classes, proper roles. But here in this hidden canyon, boundaries seemed less important than connections. Tomorrow would bring more challenges,
She still couldn't grind corn properly. Her Apache vocabulary remained pitifully small, and several elders watched her with open suspicion. But tonight, she had family. Not the one she'd planned or lost, but the one she'd found in the most unexpected way. And perhaps that was enough. Outside, wind sang through the canyon walls. Inside, Dakota's breathing deepened into sleep. Little Fox made small dreaming sounds, and Evelyn Carter, widow, mother, unlikely Apache wife, closed her eyes and felt, for the first time in years, truly home. The rider came at dawn, when mist still clung to the canyon walls. Evelyn was grinding corn with the other women when the sentry's whistle pierced the morning air, 3 sharp notes that meant outsider approaching. Everyone froze. Dakota appeared from the horse corral, rifle in hand. Other warriors materialized from various points, creating a protective barrier around the camp. But when the rider came into view, Evelyn's heart sank. Captain Morrison from Fort Stanton, and he wasn't alone. A full cavalry unit waited just beyond the canyon mouth. She could see the glint of metal through the trees. "I'll go talk to him," she said, starting to rise. "No." Dakota's hand on her shoulder was firm. "Too dangerous. Could be trap." "He helped us before." "Before? You were White Widow needing protection. Now." He gestured at her Apache dress, her sun-darkened skin. Little Fox playing at her feet with the other children. "Now you something else." Shima approached, her weathered face grave. "Bring the captain. Only him. We hear what he says." The negotiation took time. Finally, Morrison dismounted, handing his weapons to his sergeant. He walked into camp with careful dignity, trying not to stare at the Apache life around him. "Mrs. Carter," he said when he spotted her. "Thank God you're safe. We've been searching for weeks." "I'm fine, Captain. As you can see." His eyes took in her appearance, the protective circle of Apache women around her, Dakota's possessive stance. "Your situation has caused concern at the fort and in town. Bernard Tucker's been raising hell. Says you've been kidnapped, forced into unsavory circumstances. Does this look forced to you?" "No, ma'am, but Tucker's got the territorial governor's ear. There's talk of sending troops to rescue you." Morrison's expression was carefully neutral. "I volunteered to find you first. See if intervention was needed." "It's not," Evelyn said firmly. "I'm here by choice. And the child, young James." "Little Fox," she corrected. "His name is Little Fox, and he's thriving." As if to prove her point, the baby toddled over, clutching a wooden horse someone had carved for him. He babbled happily in a mixture of English and Apache, showing Morrison his toy. The captain's expression softened. "He does look well cared for." He glanced around the circle of watchful faces. "But ma'am, you must understand the position this puts everyone in. The army can't ignore a white woman living with hostiles." "We're not hostiles," Dakota interrupted. "We keep peace, stay hidden, bother no one." "I know that. You know that. But men like Tucker, they see it different." Morrison sighed. "He's got lawyers now. Says since you're clearly not of sound mind, living with Indians, he should be appointed guardian of your property." Rage flashed hot through Evelyn. "He has no right." "He's your nearest male relative by marriage. Without your husband." "I have a husband." The words came out before she could stop them. Morrison's eyebrows rose. "Pardon." "Dakota and I are married, in the Apache way." She lifted her chin, daring him to challenge it. "I see." Morrison was quiet for a long moment. "That complicates things. Apache marriage isn't recognized by territorial law." "Then we'll make it legal by white law, too," Dakota said. "If that stops this Tucker." "It might help, but you'd need to appear before a judge, file papers. And that means leaving here, going to town." Morrison looked directly at Evelyn. "Both of you would need to go. They'd want to question you, make sure you're not being coerced."
Shima, who'd been listening silently, spoke in rapid Apache. Dakota translated, "She says this is trap. Moment we enter White Town, they separate us. Take child." "I give you my word that won't happen," Morrison said. "Judge Bent is a fair man. He'll listen."
"White man's word," one of the warriors spat. "We know what that's worth."
The tension ratcheted higher. Evelyn felt it building like a thunderstorm. Violence hovering just out of sight. One wrong word. One sudden movement. "What if I go alone?" she said suddenly. "Talk to the judge. File whatever papers needed. Dakota and Little Fox stay here where it's safe." No, Dakota's refusal was immediate. Too dangerous. "He's right," Morrison agreed. "Tucker's hired some rough men. They're watching the roads. A woman alone." He shook his head. "Then what do you suggest, Captain?" Morrison considered. "There might be another way. Judge Bent sometimes holds court at the mission. Neutral ground. Father Miguel could arrange it, ensure safety for all parties." "The priest who wanted me to teach." Evelyn remembered the kind-faced man who'd visited their burned home. "The same. He's been asking after you, says he still needs that teacher." Morrison smiled slightly. "Apparently several Apache families have expressed interest in their children learning English, but only if you're the teacher." Hope flickered. "When?" 2 weeks. Full moon. I can guarantee safe passage to and from the mission." Morrison looked at the assembled Apache. "For all who wish to attend." Shima spoke again. Longer this time. The discussion that followed was heated, with several voices raised in argument. "Finally." She held up a hand for silence. "We consider," she told Morrison in English. "You go now. Come back moonful with priest's word of safety. Then we see." Morrison knew a dismissal when he heard one. He stood, tipping his hat to Evelyn. "Ma'am, I'm glad to see you well. Whatever you decide, know that some of us at the fort understand. Not everyone sees the world in simple colors." After he left, the camp erupted in debate. Some wanted to flee immediately, deeper into the mountains. Others argued for fighting if soldiers came. Dakota translated fragments for Evelyn, but she could follow the essence from tone alone. "This my fault," she said quietly. "I brought this danger." "No." Dakota's voice was firm. "Danger always here. You just excuse they use now." That night, the council met again. This time, Evelyn was invited to speak for herself. She stood before the elders, Little Fox asleep in her arms, and spoke from her heart. "I know I bring complications," she said slowly, using what Apache words she'd learned. "My presence creates risk, but also opportunity." She switched to English, letting Dakota translate. The captain spoke truth about one thing: the old ways are ending. Not because anyone wants them to, but because the world is changing. You can fight that change and lose everything. Or you can shape it, guide it, find ways to preserve what matters most. "And what matters most?" Nantan, the scarred elder, challenged. "The children." She looked down at Little Fox. "Their future, their chance to know their heritage and survive in the new world coming." "You think teaching white words saves our children?" His voice dripped contempt. "I think teaching them to walk in both worlds gives them choices. Power comes from understanding your enemy. Isn't that what warriors learn? Language is another kind of weapon." "She speaks wisdom," said an elder woman Evelyn had come to respect. "My grandson trades in town. Says those who speak English get better prices, fairer treatment." The debate continued past midnight. Evelyn dozed fitfully in Dakota's wiki-up, waking when he finally returned. What did they decide? "We go to mission. Shima leads delegation. Test this judge's fairness. Your priest's good faith." He sat heavily, exhaustion in every line. "But if trap..." "It won't be..." Morrison gave his word. "You trust too easy. And you trust too hard." She moved closer. offering comfort. Somewhere between us is the right amount. He almost smiled, always finding middle path.
Someone has to.
The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Evelyn worked with the women making trade goods for the mission visit beadwork, woven baskets, dried herbs. She also helped several mothers prepare their children, teaching basic English phrases. "Hello, my name is, She coached a shy girl of perhaps 6.
Hello,
the child repeated carefully. "My name is Lu Yu." "Beautiful. Now try 'I am pleased to meet you.'" The formal phrase twisted young tongues, causing giggles, but they persisted, eager to master these strange new sounds. Dakota watched these lessons with something like pain in his eyes. "I remember mission school," he said one evening. "They beat us for speaking Apache, cut our hair, told us our parents' ways were evil." "This will be different," Evelyn promised. "I won't let anyone hurt them or shame them. They'll learn English as a tool, not a replacement for who they are." "You cannot promise that. Once door opens, hard to control what comes through." She knew he was right, but what choice did they have hide forever in shrinking corners of wilderness? Watch the children grow up with no options beyond the reservation life the government planned. 3 nights before the mission journey, Dakota woke her with urgent whispers. Riders, many moving quiet. The camp mobilized without panic. Clearly they'd drilled for this. Women and children melted into hidden caves, while warriors took defensive positions. Evelyn found herself in a narrow crevice with 3 other mothers. Little Fox miraculously staying quiet against her chest. Hours crawled by. No attack came, but tension stretched wire-tight. Finally, scouts reported the riders had passed soldiers, but not heading for the canyon, following some other trail. "Practice," Shima said grimly when they emerged. "For day they do find us." The close call affected everyone. Some who'd planned to journey to the mission now refused. Others who'd opposed it now agreed, seeing the need for allies, options, connections beyond their hidden world. The morning of departure dawned clear and cold. 15 Apache would make the journey: Shima, Dakota, Evelyn, Little Fox, several warriors, and 6 children whose parents wanted them to learn English. They dressed carefully. Women in their finest beadwork, men in a mixture of traditional and adapted clothing. "You nervous?" Dakota asked as they prepared to leave. "Terrified," Evelyn admitted. "What if the judge refuses to recognize our marriage? What if Tucker has poisoned everyone against us? What if sun doesn't rise tomorrow?" Dakota touched her cheek. "Cannot live in what if, only in what is." Apache philosophy. Human philosophy. Come, time to face your world again. As they rode from the canyon, Evelyn looked back once at the hidden camp. For 2 months it had been sanctuary, classroom, proving ground. Now she carried its lessons with her patience. Resilience, the strength found in community. Behind them, the camp disappeared into landscape like smoke. Ahead, the mission bells were already ringing, calling faithful and curious alike to witness something new trying to be born. "Ready?" Dakota asked. Evelyn shifted Little Fox to her other hip, felt the weight of the cradle board on her back, the responsibility of the children watching her with trusting eyes. "No," she said honestly, "but that's never stopped me before." He smiled, the full, rare smile that transformed his face. "Good. Boring woman would not attempt impossible things." "Is that what we're attempting, the impossible?" "Yes." His hand found hers as they rode. "But sometimes impossible just means no one tried right way yet." The mission bells grew louder. Somewhere behind those adobe walls, Judge Bent waited with papers that could legitimize or destroy everything they'd built. Tucker waited with his lawyers and lies. Father Miguel waited with his hope for bridge building. And Evelyn Carter, widow, mother, unlikely Apache wife, rode toward it all with her chosen family, ready to prove that love could indeed cross any boundary, survive any challenge, create any future. The sun climbed higher. blessing their journey. Little Fox began to babble his mixed language song. The other children joined in. And for just that moment, riding between two worlds with hope instead of fear, anything seemed possible. The mission of San Rafael stood like a beacon of hope against the morning sky, its white adobe walls glowing in the desert sun. As their party approached, Evelyn saw they weren't the only ones who'd come for this unprecedented gathering. Wagons and horses filled the courtyard. Townspeople, ranchers, even a few Mexican families who'd heard about the Apache children coming to learn. Father Miguel waited at the gates, his weathered face creasing into a smile. "Welcome, all of you. This is a blessed day." Bernard Tucker stood near the church steps, flanked by two hired guns and a thin man in a black suit. His lawyer, no doubt. Tucker's face twisted with disgust as he saw Evelyn in Apache dress. Little Fox in the cradleboard on her back. "There she is," he announced loudly. "My poor cousin's widow, stolen by savages, forced to—" "Mr. Tucker." Judge Samuel Bent's voice cut through the dramatics. He sat at a table under the portal. Official papers spread before him. "You'll have your chance to speak. For now, let's proceed with order." The judge was younger than Evelyn expected, with intelligent eyes and prematurely gray temples. His Mexican wife, Ignacia, sat nearby with their children, a living example of crossed boundaries. Mrs. Carter." Judge Bent addressed her formally. "Please approach." Evelyn walked forward, aware of every eye upon her. Dakota stayed with the Apache delegation, but his presence gave her strength. "Is it true you've been living with the Apache by choice?" the judge asked. "Yes, Your Honor. And this man," he gestured to Dakota, "you claim to be married to him. We are married in the Apache tradition." Tucker's lawyer jumped up. "Savage ceremonies have no legal standing." "I'll determine what is standing in my court. Mr. Weatherby." Judge Bent's tone brooked no argument. "Mrs. Carter, are you prepared to formalize this union under territorial law?" "We are." "Then let's begin." He opened a leather-bound book. "I'll need witnesses." Captain Morrison stepped forward. "I'll stand witness, Your Honor." "As will I," Father Miguel added, surprising everyone. "A priest supporting heathen marriage?" Tucker sputtered. "I support love and family, wherever found." Father Miguel replied calmly, "And I've seen how these two care for each other and the child." The ceremony was simple. Dakota approached, standing tall despite the hostile stares. They repeated vows in English, signed papers, exchanged rings again this time for White Law's benefit. "By the authority vested in me by the territory of New Mexico," Judge Bent intoned, "I pronounce you legally wed." "This is outrage," Tucker burst out. "She's clearly been corrupted, lost her mind. No decent white woman would—" "Enough." Evelyn turned to face him, voice carrying across the courtyard. "You want to talk about decency? You burned my home, tried to steal my land, used my grief as opportunity for profit. Lies spread by this savage?" "Not lies." Sheriff Watson emerged from the crowd, producing a document. Sworn testimony from Samuel Hayes and others. "They've confessed to the arson. Mr. Tucker said you paid them." Tucker's face went pale. "That's their line to save themselves." "Furthermore," Watson continued, "we've been investigating those financial irregularities Mrs. Wellington mentioned before she fled. Seems you were partners in several schemes." The judge's gavel cracked down. "Mr. Tucker, you're under arrest for arson, conspiracy, and fraud. Sheriff, take him into custody." As Watson led a protesting Tucker away, Judge Bent turned back to Evelyn and Dakota. "Now, about this child." Little Fox had been remarkably patient, but chose that moment to demand attention. Evelyn lifted him from the cradleboard, and he immediately reached for Dakota, babbling
Papa in Apache. He seems well-adjusted, the judge observed. But there's still the matter of legal guardianship, mister. Tucker raised the issue, and it must be addressed. Little Fox is my nephew, Dakota said, last of my sister's children. By Apache law, I am his guardian. And I've been his mother since he was 6 months old, Evelyn added. I've fed him, cared for him, loved him as my own. Judge Bent consulted his papers. There's precedent for recognizing Apache kinship in guardianship matters. And with your marriage, now legal, he smiled. I see no reason to disturb the child's current situation. Let the record show Little Fox is that his legal name. James Fox Carter, Evelyn said, combining all his identities, Little Fox to family. Let the record show James Fox Carter shall remain in the custody of his maternal uncle Dakota and adoptive mother Evelyn Carter. The gavel came down again. Case closed. Relief flooded through Evelyn so powerfully she swayed. Dakota's arm came around her, steady and sure. But the day wasn't over. Father Miguel stepped forward. Now, shall we discuss the school? What followed was unlike any negotiation Evelyn had witnessed. Shima, speaking through Dakota, laid out strict conditions Apache children would attend 3 days a week, no more. They'd keep their names, their hair, their language. English would be taught as addition, not replacement. They learn your words, Shima said in her careful English. But keep our hearts. Some townspeople objected. We can't have wild Indians mixing with our children. Then your children learn alone, Father Miguel said simply. Mrs. Carter has agreed to teach only if Apache students are welcomed with respect. The debate raged for hours, but gradually, practical voices prevailed. The territory needed educated citizens. Apache who could read contracts couldn't be cheated as easily. Children who understood each other might not grow up to kill each other. 3-month trial. Judge Bent finally ruled. If it works, we continue. If problems arise, we reassess. As the crowd dispersed, Evelyn found herself surrounded by Apache mothers, asking questions about the school. When would it start? What would their children need? Could they observe lessons? You did it, Dakota said quietly. Built your bridge. We built it, she corrected. And it's barely started. So much could go wrong. White Dove worries too much. It was Luyu, the young girl who'd practiced English. She tugged at Evelyn's skirt. We ready learn. You ready teach. The simple faith in the child's eyes steadied her. Yes, little one, I'm ready. They returned to the ranch with the Apache delegation, who would camp nearby for a few days before returning to the mountains. The wickiup still stood, weather-worn but solid. Beside the framework of a new house, a fusion of Apache and frontier styles that Captain Morrison's men had helped start. That night, they held a celebration. Apache and white traditions mixed. Shima blessed the union in the old way, while Father Miguel offered Catholic prayers. Mexican neighbors brought food. Even some townspeople came, curious about these Apache who spoke of education rather than war. Strange gathering. Dr. Klein observed, watching Apache children play with the doctor's son. Year ago, couldn't imagine it. Year from now, might seem normal. Morrison replied, world's changing. Either we change with it or get left behind. As the evening wore on, Evelyn found a quiet moment with Dakota on the hill overlooking their land. Little Fox slept between them, exhausted from the day's excitement. No more running, Dakota said softly. No more hiding. This is home now. Are you sure your people, the mountains? My people are here too. He gestured to the mixed gathering below. And mountains don't move. They wait for us when we need them. And the school, you truly support this. Children need tools to survive. English is tool. But you'll teach them more than words. I think... What do you mean? You'll teach them what you taught me, that bridges can be built, that different peoples can choose to see each other as human. He pulled her close. That love crosses all boundaries. In the distance, coyotes called to the rising moon, but the sound no longer seemed lonely. It was just another voice in the desert chorus, part of the whole. 3 months later, the school was thriving. 12 Apache children attended regularly, along with 15 from town. They learned English, yes, but also taught each other Apache words, Mexican songs, frontier games. Parents who'd sworn never to trust their enemies found themselves sharing coffee while waiting for their children. It wasn't perfect. There were conflicts, misunderstandings, days when the whole experiment seemed doomed. But there were also breakthrough moments, a white rancher's son defending his Apache friend from bullies, Apache mothers teaching town women traditional healing, Dakota working alongside former enemies to build the new schoolhouse. Little Fox grew strong and confident, toddling between all the worlds that claimed him. He called Evelyn Mama in English and Shimani in Apache. He knew his prayers in 3 languages and played with children of all backgrounds. "He'll never fully belong to any one world," Evelyn said one evening, watching him chase fireflies with a mixed group of children. "No," Dakota agreed. "He'll belong to all of them. That's his gift and his burden." "Do you think we've done right by him?" "Look at him!" Little Fox shrieked with laughter as an older Apache boy lifted him high. "Happy, healthy, loved. What more can parents give?" The harvest season brought unexpected bounty. The expanded ranch prospered. The school gained territorial recognition. Even some former critics admitted the experiment showed promise. Bernard Tucker was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Mary Wellington never returned. The burned house site became a garden where Apache, Mexican, and white children learned to grow food together. One crisp autumn evening, as Evelyn tucked Little Fox into his bed in their completed house, a unique structure that incorporated both Apache and frontier elements, he looked up at her with solemn eyes. "Mama, am I Apache or white?" She'd known this question would come. "You're both, my love, and neither. You're Little Fox, unique and perfect exactly as you are. Like our house." "Yes, like our house, built from different traditions but stronger for it." He considered this. "Good, I like being special." After he slept, Evelyn joined Dakota on the porch. They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars emerge in the vast sky. "Winter's coming," he observed. "My people will move to the deep canyon soon." "Will you miss it?" "The winter camp." "Parts of it. But this is my place now, here, with you and Little Fox, building something new. Even when it's hard, when people stare, when they whisper. Especially then." He took her hand, tracing the mixed metal ring. Easy paths rarely lead to worthy destinations. A year later, the school had doubled in size. Little Fox spoke 3 languages fluently and had started learning to read. The ranch employed both Apache and Mexican workers. Evelyn's innovative teaching methods drew attention from educators across the territory. But it was the small moments that mattered most. Dakota singing Apache lullabies to their second child, a daughter born under the spring moon, claimed by both worlds from her first breath. Little Fox patiently teaching younger children the alphabet, switching languages to help each understand. Shima visiting to bless the new barn, staying to teach traditional weaving to any who wished to learn. They'd built more than a home or a school. They'd built a possibility proof that different peoples could choose cooperation over conflict, understanding over fear. It wasn't the life Evelyn had planned when she'd married James, dreaming of a simple farmer's existence. It wasn't the future Dakota had imagined as a young warrior learning to protect his people from encroachment. But it was theirs, complicated, challenging, sometimes dangerous, but real and vital and full of hope. As she watched the sunset paint the desert in shades of gold and crimson, Evelyn remembered that desperate night when a wounded Apache had knocked on her door. How different everything might have been if she'd turned him away, chosen safety over compassion. "No regrets?" Dakota asked, reading her mood as he often did. None, she said firmly. Not one.
Little Fox ran across the yard, chasing their dog, his laughter carrying on the evening breeze. Their daughter cooed from her cradleboard. Somewhere in the kitchen, Rosa Hernandez was teaching her daughter and an Apache girl to make tortillas together. This was what love looked like when it refused to recognize boundaries. Messy, complicated, beautiful, and worth every challenge they'd faced to build it. "You are not alone," Evelyn whispered, echoing the promise she'd made to Little Fox that first night. "None of us are alone anymore." The stars emerged one by one, ancient witnesses to the endless human struggle to connect across differences, and in a unique house on the edge of two worlds, a family that shouldn't exist by any conventional measure prepared for another night together, proof that love, stubbornly pursued, could indeed conquer all. Thank you for listening to this story. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect and exchange thoughts about this tale. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to Wild West Tales. Hit that like button, and don't forget to press the hype button so more people can discover and enjoy this story. Your support means everything.